All right, so this is just an introductory course or lesson on ways that we can name angles and angle types. We'll want to make sure we understand the terminologies around them and kind of their properties or the rules. First off, let's learn how to name angles. Angles are often made up of rays or lines that go in different directions. Make sure that these are straight lines that intersect, and they intersect at a point. That point, we call it, is actually called the vertex. And the way to remember it is it kind of makes a V, so you kind of have to turn your head, right, or turn the paper and think V for vertex. That's how I try to recall it. All right, and sometimes angles can be seen where they have 3 points, and let's label it as A, B, and C. Okay. Now, other times an angle, and again, it doesn't have to be that direction, it could be any way. Let's draw it this way. And it would just have kind of a lowercase letter. Let's say it's an A. I'll make the A look like this. Okay. And how do we name these angles? The way to name these angles is actually you have to make sure, I know this will seem like alphabetical, but you have to make sure that you have the legs. And so these two things, this is called the leg of a triangle. Or sorry, of an angle. So that's the leg and that's another leg. There's 2 legs to this angle. You have to make sure you start from a leg, go to the vertex, and back to the leg, the other leg. So we would call this angle ABC. Now, is there another way to name this angle? Well, we could go the other way, right? So we can call it angle CBA. Notice that the middle term is always our vertex, right? The middle term is the vertex. Oftentimes in math, and especially when you come into proofs, instead of the word angle, so instead of angle here, you'll see them use this sign. It kind of looks like a sideways L or upside or sideways A as well, but it's called angle, and you would still name it ABC, okay? And this is still called angle CBA, okay? But just know that that's how we name them. Moving forward, that's how I'll probably name most of our angles. For angles such as these, where you're not given the actual points, there is another way to name this angle, and we just call it angle A with a lowercase, right? Angle A. In our case, again, we'll see it written. I'll do it in the green, keep it consistent, but angle A. So that's how we'll often name our angles. Now, there are different types of angles, and so we'll want to know what they are. Again, we're not looking at any word problems or any kind of solving or solutions today, but we want to know the different types of angles, and there are some main ones here. The first one being an angle that looks like this. And again, often angles, you see this little arch line to represent this is the angle I'm looking at in between these two. This is called an acute angle. Okay, and the way to remember it is it kind of makes an A, right? So if we turn it upside down, it looks like there's that A that we see. That's how I like to think of it, an acute angle. And what are the rules of an acute angle? We'll call this angle X in this case, lowercase x, but angle X is going to be less than 90 degrees, right? 90 degrees, so less than 90. Maybe I'll remove the degree sign just so it's not confusing with the zeros. Next, the next larger angle would be one that looks like this. It almost looks like a capital L, and usually they put a little square in there to help you remember that this is a right angle, is what we call it. Okay, and right angles, we'll call this X still. Yeah, that's fine. We'll call it X, so X is equal to 90 degrees. So this is when it's perfectly 90 degrees. Okay, a little bit bigger now. So notice how 90 would be going straight up. This angle, though, goes a little bit beyond 90. And this is called an obtuse angle. Okay, and again, that's X. We'll just name them all X. An obtuse angle tells us that the angle, x, okay, it's going to be greater than, so x is greater than here, our 90, but it's still going to be less than another angle. So it's kind of in between, right? And that's the one that goes across, and that's called 180 degrees. Okay. Next, of course, then, is that 180 degrees. And this is called a straight angle. And so straight angles equal 180 degrees. For the angle that is going across, but then notice it goes even further, okay? It kind of looks like, and oftentimes students do confuse it with the obtuse, right? But this goes beyond the 180. This is called a reflex angle. And for reflex angles, sorry, these are all still my x's. The x represents the angle. A reflex angle says that it is greater than 180, but less than going all the way around, and that's called 360 degrees. Which leaves us with the final angle, okay? And that's the one that goes all the way around, and we call that a full angle, okay? Where x is equal to 360. Again, we'll want to know these different terms and how they relate to each other. Students sometimes confuse full angles and straight angles with another type of angle, as well as right angles. We'll learn about those shortly here, okay, when we're adding and subtracting angles. But try to learn the vocabulary, make sure you know how to name different types of angles, and I'll provide some other examples for these down the road.